This program may contain elements that are not suitable for some audiences. Discretion is advised. When you look into the face of darkness, it stares back at you. The question is, who's watching who? Welcome to the dark side. This is the Watchers Paranormal Podcast.
Tonight's show is called The Original Nun. One of the cornerstones of the city of Toronto, in Canada, is St. Michael's Hospital. Run by the Sisters of St. Joseph in 1892. Sister Vincenza, born Vincentia Mullen, graduated from the hospital's nursing program in 1922 and worked at St. Michael's from 1928 until 1956 as the supervisor of obstetrics. Many of her close friends known her as Vinnie. She was a tough cookie. She ran a very tight ship. She was a tyrant. Even the doctors were at her mercy. These are some of the quotes from previous co-workers. But she still had a great sense of humor, and she deeply cared about all patient staff and anyone who would walk through the doors. During her 28 years at St. Michael's Hospital, Sister Vincenza had many accomplishments. She cared for over 60,000 babies, instructed over 18,000 nurses, and under her supervision, St. Michael's maintained an infant mortality ratio below the national average of 38 out of every 1,000, reaching as few as 10 out of every 1,000. That's amazing. In 1958, Sister Vincenza passed away. But tales of her ghostly figure appearing throughout the hospital have persisted since 1965. She often appears in the night, faceless, all dressed in white. Her nun's cowl is a circling black chasm where her face should be. Most times she'd be spotted at the bedside, often comforting a patient. She would touch you in the arm as she passed by in the hall. You would look, and there'd be nobody there. Patients would ask, "Who was that lovely woman by the bedside last night, all dressed in white?" Patients would always receive the same response: "There was no one in your room last night." To this day, Sister Vincenza continues roaming the halls of St. Michael's Hospital. Next, we're going to talk about a few encounters with Sister Vincenza, as the stories were told by former and current employees. This one titled The Original Nun. So I gave you some backstory on Sister Vincenza and a bit of her history. Now we're going to go into some of the stories. While working a night shift, a medical resident who had been at the hospital for about a month decided to veer off into a different part of the hospital, got lost, and then found his way to an elevator. Pressed the button, elevator came down, the doors open. He steps in, and there's a nun standing in the corner with her head down. He thought nothing of it. He knew it was a Catholic hospital and nuns had run the place. Thought it was a little odd though. Middle of the night, nun standing in an elevator. So he presses the floor button, doesn't make eye contact with her. Then soon the doors open. He looks back, he smiles. She has her head down. He walks off the elevator. When he gets to the staff room, he tells of his experience to a few of his colleagues. He mentions that he thought it was kind of odd that the nun would be visiting the hospital in the middle of the night. His colleague stopped him and said, "Hey man, those nuns have not been here for over 30 years." The man stood there as he felt ice run through his veins. Mortified, he had to sit down and spent the rest of his shift paired with another resident He said to me the nun looked like a real person. I smiled at her. And then I got off the elevator. I saw a nun all in white. I couldn't see her face. Her head was tilted down. I thought nothing of it. Is it possible that he had an experience with Sister Vincenza? Standing side by side in an elevator. The resident continued working there for the next 6 months. That was the one and only time he had an encounter with the original nun. On another occasion, during the night shift, an employee decided to go down to a different location in the hospital and seek out a quieter place to have a nap. They made their way down to the end of the hall in the emergency department. There is a room back there used as a casting room during the day. At night, a stretcher and 2 chairs occupy the room. The employee got comfortable, closed the privacy curtain, laid back for a nice quiet nap. Now remember, the nun runs a tight ship. Seems the employee had run past its original 1-hour break. The employee suddenly opened his eyes and saw a woman dressed in white standing right in front of him, scolding him, pointing her finger at him. He thought he was dreaming at first, but then he rubs his eyes, and that woman is still standing there. He starts to scream, he jumps up, and he runs out of the room. A couple of staff saw this and asked him what was wrong. He ran right past them, out the door, and made his way back up to his unit. That was one thing Sister Vincenza did not like, was taking extra breaks. You were responsible for taking your own break and for the right amount of time. And if you got caught slacking off or going past your break time, she would find you, and then you'd be in a lot of trouble. Still, there's some rumors of that particular area in the hospital where she's been seen a few times. She's offered a blanket, or she's come over and just touched you lightly on the arm, just to let you know everything's going to be fine. One night, a new employee came out of the break room. This was during the night shift. Notice everything's happening at night. As they walk down the hall, before intersecting another hallway, you'll see up in the wall there's a rounded mirror, just to prevent people from bumping into each other and see who's coming down the hall. So he hears something. He stops, he looks up to the mirror, and he doesn't see anyone. So he continues to walk forward, and he hears a ruffling sound coming from around the corner. Now he's all alone at night. He looks behind him, there's no one there. Looks ahead, there's no one, but he can't see around the corner yet. So he musters up the courage, takes a deep breath, and as he turns the corner and pokes his head around, he sees an outline of a woman standing near a doorway. He calls out, "Hey, is everything okay? What's going on here?" And the woman doesn't answer. He takes a deep breath and he starts to slowly walk towards her. And as he's walking towards her, he notices that it's not a full image, so to speak. It's kind of a wispy, kind of foggy outline of a woman dressed in white, just standing there and staring at him. Half her body is coming out of the wall and the other half is in the wall near the door. He freaks out, starts to scream, and as he runs towards her, she disappears into thin air. Can't believe his eyes. He goes running back into the staff room, sits down, closes his eyes, and tries to process what just happened. The next day when he came into work, he told of his experience to another colleague. That's when they said to him, "You just had an experience with Sister Vincenza." And it went on to explain about the history of the hospital and how the nun roams the halls at night. Hope you've enjoyed tonight's story on the original nun. That concludes the Ghosts of the ER trilogy.